Hi, and welcome to today's Daily Chronicle. Today is Tuesday, February 10th, 2025. A Shark Tank alum needed cash to pay tariffs. This shadowy lending world was ready. Joshua, I have approved you for $300K over 36 months. Should I send out the contract? Ready to put together a deal for your business with fair terms to pay off current balances. When to pay off, you borrow again however much you want. Joshua, are you there? No hidden fees, no BS, no aggressive sales tactics, just straight truth on how this industry operates. You may not like what I have to say sometimes, but I always tell it the way it is. The text, calls, and WhatsApp messages never stop. Point me in the direction of what dollar amount do you need, and we'll get it priced out and funded today. It's Bella, it's Jake, it's Zevi, strangers offering quick cash to help Joshua Esnard's business in North Carolina. How does 350K sound? Or 708,000, 768,000, and up to $900,000 approved in an hour, they say. Money in a day. No gimmicks, Joshua. No hidden fees, no BS. Exceedingly urgent pitches have flooded small businesses, owners' inboxes since the middle of last year, when many of them scrounge for money to pay unexpected tariff bills. The same number calls 3 times in a row when Esnard listens to music on his phone, the constant pings making it sound like skipping a CD. He installed a spam calling blocking app. His father started getting the pitches. How many times do I need to tax before you make this happen? I'm ready to deliver funding now. Are you ignoring me? Joshua Esnard stands for a portrait the Cup Buddy warehouse in Morrisville, North Carolina on January 16th. For importers like Esnard, President Trump's global tariffs triggered an existential emergency. The goods from suppliers in China, France, or Vietnam were landing in ports in Los Angeles, Houston, New York, New Jersey, but physically claiming these products suddenly required instant cash, tens of thousands of unbudgeted dollars. Some turned to a shady, largely unregulated corner of the financial world. The same industry that had gone after struggling music venues during pandemic lockdowns and shops during the Great Recession. It offers lifelines that can turn into tripwires. Now to a new market of desperate business owners. It started with a bad haircut. Esnard was 13 when he took a pair of scissors to a thick, see-through plastic folder and carved a stencil that would guide his first DIY haircut, then his path to life. Esnard's parents, academics originally from St. Lucia, had moved the family to upstate New York to teach at Cornell University. Good barbers weren't near his house. Regardless, his dad was not about to pay for one. A man who'd fashioned his own toys as a kid and approached home repairs with MacGyver confidence could certainly buzz his son's hair himself. And I'm just like, man, I can't do this, Esnard says. I got my TJ Maxx clothes, the platinum FUBU. I'm ready to go talk to the girls, but I got this buzz cut. So I'm like, I want a fade and an edge up. He tried winking it himself in the bathroom mirror, but jacked up his hairline. So Esnard opened his inventor book, as this MacGyver apple sure fell close to the tree, and sketched in orange and blue ink a flat tool with angles and curves. He would hold it as a template against his head to guide the clippers for sharp lines. Early on, Esnard had licensed his Cup Buddy tool to Andes, one of the top branding for hair grooming tools. Many hair trims later, his own friends and roommates, this Cup Buddy became Esnard's first patent at 7. Sales launched in 2016 with Esnar thinking the side gig would help pay off his car. His investors were his parents and grandmother, at $1,000 each. Within weeks, the tool went viral thanks to a plug by YouTuber Nick Wavy. Esnar charged $9,000 to his personal credit card for a rush of factory orders. Boldly reaching for a literal star, Esnar also fired off his pitch to billionaire investor Mark Cuban, who famously reads his own emails. Cuban didn't reply, but the universe works in serendipitous ways. That email did come was an invite from Shark Tank, with Cuban on the dais. Esnar left the taping with a handshake deal with his FUBU founder, idol Damon John. In the show footage, the camera zooms in on a teardrop streaking Esnar's cheek as he speaks of wanting to do good by his own soon-to-be-born first child. Esnar laughs about it now, saying he has gone from crying on TV about being a dad to crying on a Zoom about high-cost borrowing through merchant cash advances and unregulated deep dark well. Merchant cash advances, or MCA, is often compared to as a payday loan for a business because this money is quick, convenient, and costly. Technically, it's not a loan, but a purchase of a company's future sales. The lender gives money up front and then takes a weekly or daily cut of receipts directly from the borrower's bank account until the debt is repaid and then some. This financing often fills a gap that banks don't, and it's chaotic. Predatory lenders and loan sharks, often merchant cash advances, so do Amazon and PayPal with milder terms. Rohit Chopra, who invested the industry as director of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau before Trump fired him and most of the agency's staff, told NPR he'd found tactics that would make a mobster blush. Esnar's office walls are lined up with patents, including one for a version of his tool to guide hair trims. Because of these cash advances aren't classified as loans, most lending laws don't apply. The lenders are not required to be licensed. The fees they can charge have no legal cap. And because this debt is usually due within months, an equivalent annual interest can be astronomical. John Ahrensmeyer, who heads the advocacy group Small Business Majority, says the comparable annual cost averages 94%, and he has seen terms as high as 350%. No researcher seems to have a firm grasp on how big the industry is. Merchant cash advances totaled just under $9 billion in 2014. Federal investigators estimated 5 years later they had ballooned to almost $20 billion. That's before the COVID-19 pandemic and tariffs roiled companies' cash flows, creating even more demand for quick credit. A business that takes out one MCA tends to not stop at one, borrowing more to repay the original lender. This is a deep, dark well, says debt relief lawyer Ken Dramer. As far as you want to dive into it, it just keeps getting uglier. Hey, we'll get your company approved within 2 hours. How much are you seeking? Joshua, if money wasn't an obstacle, what would you fix your business this week? You've already approved for funding, by the way. When tariffs cost more than the product. Now a decade-old Cup Buddy turns $6 million in revenue a year. The company sells 24 grooming items, including clippers, brushes, and shaving cream. Many are found at Walmart, Target, Amazon, and CVS. The employed right now is the Bald Buddy, an ergonomic shaver that retails for $38 to $60. It's made in China and is almost everything from this brand. Last year was said to be the Cut Buddy's best one yet. Esnard was expanding his contracts with big box stores, and he lined up funding to step up factory orders. In 2024, when he couldn't afford to manufacture fast enough, Walmart had docked his product from 15,000 stores. In 2025, the Cut Buddy was back. And then the tariffs. Trump went after Chinese imports with exceptional focus, ratcheting levies several times. The important tax briefly peaked at 145% and still averages 45%. Esnard disassembled the Bald Buddy to count the parts that he could, hypothetically sourced in the US instead of China. He found 2 out of 45. The device's price would double. The Cut Buddy's tariff bill became erratic and exorbitant. One day in May, Esnard paid a duty of $4,636 on a shipment and replaced shaver heads worth $3,040. He left some goods lingering at customs. Storage fees escalated quickly. He thought about holding his products abroad, but for how long? Stores demand stocked shelves. Online shoppers unable to get the Cut Buddy's replacement heads might switch brands altogether. You're stuck in this situation when you're desperate, and customs has your product at the dock. You've got to deliver it to Walmart, Target, or whatever, Esnard says. Because if you don't deliver it to these retailers, they drop your product. Paying the tariff is the one way forward. So where do you get the money from? He says. You get it from the mob, and that's the MCA. A fast fix where banks stay away. Over the years, to keep the Cut Buddy going, Esnard has tapped his home equity. And personal savings. As the company grew, its biggest loans came from a nonprofit that supports businesses from underinvested communities, which Esnard paid back by early 2025. And the gold standard for lending, the U.S. Small Business Administration, a bank was never really an option. As we've seen, the largest banks in the country gobble up local banks. Many small businesses cannot get the time of day from those financial supermarkets, says Cobra. The former federal financial watchdog. The U.S. still has far more banks than any other country, but their number is now a third of what it was in 1980. About half of the U.S. small businesses, at some point, need to borrow money, says Aaron Meyer, a small business majority. But nearly 2/3 for historically underbanked communities, including immigrant entrepreneurs. By contrast, 9 out of 10 businesses will get approved for a merchant cash advance, Aaron Meyer says. Some of the MCA lenders are licensed and publicly funded by Wall Street. Others are bankrolled by wealthy families or networks of private investors. They take big risks for big rewards, and they move fast. Unlike banks, they don't spend weeks scrutinizing troves of financial records. A quick check of your receipts and the funds get on their way. If we reach an agreement, I'll have you funded within hours. Send me the last 4 months' statements. The industry also markets relentlessly. Virginia business owner Sarah Wells, who manufactures handbags and accessories, gets 5 calls and texts a day, offering hundreds of thousands of dollars within a day. Richard Brown, who imports sneaker care products for his Ohio business, Proof Culture, has fielded over 100 email pitches in a matter of weeks. If I were to outperform the chumps and email you the best funding offer, would you at least entertain it? It's Josh, it's Harper, it's Camilla. Circling back from the funding approval unit. A search of public records shows that some of the messengers are real people from real firms. Others are linked to unregistered entities or websites with stock photos of team members. NPR left voice and text messages for lenders who'd pitched Esnard. None responded, except for one who replied only, "How did you get my information?" However shady the source, fast access to cash is enticing in a crisis. The Cup Buddies tariff bill stacked a roughly $800,000 last year, more than 5 times what Esnard would normally budget. He covered that tab with 3 merchant cash advances. Their sum ran $950,000. With the fees, Esnard's total debt topped $1.2 million. My dad told me when we moved to the United States, "Don't ever owe anybody," Esnard says. He then leans forward, throws his hands up, and flashes a grin. "Well, I messed up, Dad." Searching for shelter in a zombie attack. The irony is that 2025 was, in fact, the Cup Buddies' best year by revenue. But all the profits were gobbled up, either by the tariffs or the debt payment needed to cover them. Week after week, Esnard's 3 MCA lenders each took a cut from the company's sales. One week, they withdrew $9,286, $7,381, and $13,500 to stay afloat. Esnard exhausted his personal credit limit. He fired the Cup Buddy consultants who'd helped run the website and advertising. He paused donations of clippers and grooming tools to veterans, which broke his team's hearts. This January, Esnard skipped his own paycheck. Esnard receives a call pitching a merchant cash advance. Such pitches flood his phone daily. At one point, he appealed to the Small Business Administration, or SBA, hoping to refinance his debt. But last year, the agency stopped accepting such applications, determining merchant cash advances to be a red flag on a business record. I look at it as a zombie attack. Esnard says these zombies are the MCAs calling you and harassing you, trying to give you money in 24 hours with a crazy fee. And then you're running for help to the SBA, which is the shelter, and they just close the door on you because they think you may have gotten bit by these zombies. In recent years, states have waded in. Several, including Texas and Virginia, have required MCA lenders to register with the state and give borrowers clear disclosure of terms. California gave its financial watchdog agency, and lawmakers are weighing a law to reclassify some cash advances as loans. Some industry players have pushed to weed out the bad apples. For example, the Small Business Finance Association, whose Wall Street funded members offer merchant cash advances. Along with other types of financing, wants regulators to require that lenders be licensed. There's bad actors in our space for sure. There's bad donut makers. There's bad bankers. There's bad players in every industry. Says the group's CEO, Steve Dennis. He acknowledged that some firms push predatory funding with forceful marketing. We're really relying on the regulators and policymakers to help us really clean up our industry, he says. In 2023, the Federal Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, under CHOPRA, tried to require MCA lenders to collect and report data about small business borrowers. But in November, after Trump's shakeup, the agency revised those lending rules to exclude merchant cash advances. Regulators who didn't respond to NPR wrote that MCAs are structured differently. Don't use traditional lending concepts like interest rate. But in November, after Trump's shakeup, the agency revised those lending rules to exclude merchant cash advances. Regulators who didn't respond to NPR wrote that MCAs are structured differently. Don't use traditional lending concepts like interest rate, and have not been fully regulated by states yet. A way out. In the lowest moments, Esnar thinks back to a message that altered his view of his job. My business blew up when a disabled veteran sent an email saying, "I take medication and my hands shake, and because of your product, I could steady my hand and I could cut my hair perfectly." Esnard says that was the first time I realized, wow, this wasn't about making money. This was actually helping people. He outfitted his hair clippers with a curvy joystick, style swiveling handle that's easier for someone with limited dexterity or vision. He made the device so quiet that it appealed to parents of children sensitive to sound. At this table, Esnard creates and tweaks new products for the Cub Buddy, but recent financial stress had left him little time for that. Today, Esnard's office near the Raleigh, Durham Airport is full of 3D printed prototypes and patents. His own and his mentees, his 8-year-old son, who now has a 4-year-old sister, recently won his way to the state science fair. The Dremel carving tool they'd use for the project now sits on Esnard's testing table, next to be disassembled clippers for a new invention in progress. This is my favorite area, Esnard says, turning 2 steel clippers in his hands, but he's not here enough, because I'm spending more time looking at profit and loss statements and figuring out if I can afford the loans. He reached out to the rescue squad that has backed him before, his past lender, the Business Consortium Fund, a nonprofit that invests in underfunded businesses. Esnard told a committee of entrepreneurs and corporate executives that he had nowhere left to go. His business was growing, he'd paid off their past loans on time. Might they consider topping off their usual lending limits? The group agreed to refinance Esnard Merchant's cash advances, turning his debt into a traditional 5-year loan with a manageable interest rate. The fund CEO says Esnard had proved himself an entrepreneur with grit and gumption, and Esnard says he feels like he has won the lottery. But on the day the deal closed last week, Esnard sounded less jubilant and more exhausted. He's relieved to be free of the MCAs, but the debt remains and the hustle to survive continues.